Life is like a game of football, and we all play to win. This is Kanayo's Corner. It's a brand new show on WNFC TV where I won't be talking about football. In fact, I'll be putting football on the back burner and I'll be talking about life. We'll talk about what drives us, what moves us, what pushes us. And I've got two gentlemen I've known for over 2 decades joining me tonight. I'll let them introduce themselves. I've known them for 20 odd years. As I've said, we went to medical school together. So do you want to introduce yourselves? Anybody just jump in?
I guess we go alphabetically. Adamu, you go ahead.
So hi, Adamu Mekano, mostly known as MK. Good to be here. Classmates with Olga and Kanayo, as it's called in
Yep.
the UK. We call him Casey. You guys call him Kanayo. Yeah. So, great to be here. Yes. I'm here. I'm meeting my brothers. It's been a minute. I haven't seen them in a while, but yeah, good to catch
Yeah,
up.
American, you are joining from Nigeria, right? Where in Nigeria are you
I'm
joining
joining
from?
from Nigeria. That's true. Yeah. That.
Okay,
Yeah.
welcome. And the other gentleman is?
Hi, everyone. I am Emmanuel Olga. It's an ultimate pleasure to be reunited with my brothers from a different mother. As Kanayo says, we've been friends for exactly 25 years. If you can
Wow.
imagine that, we're a quarter of a century is how long I've known you troublemakers, and I regret not 1 minute of it.
Nice, nice, nice. I
Emmanuel
mean,
Oga calling from Maryland in the US. Yeah.
you're welcome, Emmanuel. Obviously, we've known each other for over 2 decades, as we've said. So, how does it feel to be in your 40s now? I mean, I assume that we're all in our 40s.
I tell you, someone lied on his birth certificate. We should be in our 40s, yeah?
So, I mean,
How
so
does
when
it
we were in
feel?
our 20s, right? When we were in our 20s, what did you imagine life would be like when you were in your 40s, like now? Oga.
That's a very interesting question. I had multiple different visions of the future when I was around the time we met, 2001, 2002.
Yeah.
Depending on what day of the weekend I woke up, day of the week I woke up, I had a different vision of what my future would look like. I would say, fortunately, where I currently am is one of the visions I used to have. In fact, I used to joke on that I was surprised by how well my younger, reckless, thoughtless self was able to predict what my future self would look like and would need. And why do I say that? I remember back when in medical school, everyone would like, what do you want to be when you get out of medical school? What do you want to do? What do you want to specialize in? We had people saying they wanted to do surgery, they wanted to do, medicine, they wanted to be sports physician. I just told them I wanted to be a public health physician and travel the world. Now it
Yeah.
surprises me how accurate my silly young self was about the future. And so in that sense, in terms of my daily work, my daily 9 to 5, I have been somewhat fortunate to stumble into the path that works for me. In every other respect, I have been a catastrophic failure. I would have expected to be a billionaire by now, own multiple private jets, own my own private island. Obviously, by those measures, I have been an unmitigated disaster. So take your poison. Pick your
All
poison.
right. I mean,
Decide.
so it's a good thing, right? It's a good thing you don't own an island like Epstein. So
Fair enough.
that's a
Fair
positive.
enough. Mm.
So Mekano, I mean, so what's it like now for you? Like, what do you think life would be like in your 40s back then, and compare that to what it is now?
Yeah, okay, so interesting question, yeah? So let me answer it this way. In terms of, there's a lot that I think in terms of the picture of the future I had in my mind while we were in med school, right? In terms of my career, I think I've sort of exceeded my expectations, to be honest, right? In terms of my personal life, I would say I haven't really done as well as I thought I would. When we're in med school, and let me start with my personal life. So when we're in med school, I always thought I was going to get married before 30. And now I'm 40 plus and I'm still not married. No, seriously. Let's talk. And sometimes I think of every other thing and I feel like there's one thing that is missing. Like, I should have gotten this thing right. And now I'm in a headspace where I don't even know if I want to get married, if that makes sense, right? So I have a daughter, and I think like I'm all right. I don't need anything else, right? Yeah. And if with a little luck, I just might get a blast from the past from my, indiscretions in Gombe, and maybe I have a 15-year-old somewhere. I'm kind of hoping that happens, right? So, but it remains to be seen. But in terms of my career, right? For me, honestly, when we're in 400, when we got to 400 level and we started M0 S0, I just knew I didn't want to be in med school. But at that point, it was easier to graduate than it was to switch courses. I
Too.
had an opportunity to switch courses in 400 level after S0 posting in Professor Ugu's team. I swear to God, I would have switched. I really wanted to leave med school. But then I had we had 2 years. We had gone through everything that we had gone through in pre-med. So it just made sense that it was easier to graduate. And then the only postings I could really relate to or relate with, or kind of postings that I really had an interest for, was Zoaka's posting community health. I remember going to Gindri and feeling really alive for the first time in a long time. So it was either we were in August Place, if we were not just hanging out as boys or playing football or something, right? School just felt really deflating for me at a point. And then I went to Gindri, and then everything came alive, right? And like Olga, I also felt, okay, so damage control. Maybe you just do public health and, get something out of this wrong choice you made. And then I think I started doing public health, and then it was just the MDGs and everything. And then universal health coverage came on. I remember going for a meeting, and then someone said something about universal health coverage, and I didn't know what they were talking about. That was like 2013 thereabout, and I felt a little silly. And then reading up, I felt like, oh, I should do something in health financing. Even at that point, when I decided to go back to the UK for a second master's, I really didn't know what I was looking for. What I knew I wanted to do was I needed to leave the HIV space. And maybe Olga can relate to this. He was in IHBN, I was in APIN, I was in CIHB. And at the point, it felt like, okay, you'd gotten into public health, but you were stuck somewhere just doing HIV, and you really didn't have a feel of what public health really, the kind of public health you thought you do when you were doing your MPH. So like 2011, 2012, up until 2014, 2015, I was in that really bubble where I was in a bit of a pickle. And at some point, I even thought of writing PLAB, thought of writing USMLE, because the HIV space wasn't really working for me. It was good when I just sort of started out in public health, but after a while, it sort of had a way of cutting me off every other thing in terms of public health that I really wanted to do. And so when I went for health policy planning and financing, to be honest with you guys, the motivation was just to break away from HIV and just take a breather. But okay, so I was going to take a year, and I was going to be somewhat redundant. Felt like I should just get a qualification while I was at it, right? So decided, let me just go for that. And so I'm saying all of this to, when I started, I said, I feel in terms of my career, I exceeded expectation. Post my second master's in health policy, I thought I was going to work in policy, and then somehow I found myself with the British High Commission. And now I don't do a lot of health policy. I do more of public policy. So I do everything from social protection to climate to climate smart agriculture to lots of stuff. So basically for me, it has been I think I got my wish at the end, just moving away from medicine, moving away from health. Because what I do right now is anything but public health. It's more public policy. I spend more time talking about education and other sectors than I do about health. So yeah, that's been what it has been for me.
Fair enough. I mean, ultimately, you both have turned out well, okay? And so...
Okay, we turned out okay.
Yeah, okay. So when I was thinking, all right, so when I was thinking about us having this chat, and doing this show, I wanted to target midlife crisis. What crisis? Okay. So midlife crisis, as you would know, I mean, it's sort of like the notion where at some point in your life, you start to do things differently from what your usual self would do. And so you may have new passions, you may take new risks, new directions. So on that note, let's talk about that. And Olga, you're going to be on the spotlight for a minute because you've been putting out some music, some really, really good music, I must say, on YouTube. On Spotify. I mean, I've got my favorite song, and I'll tell you what it is down the line. But is this some kind of midlife crisis?
That's an interesting question. But before we even go any further, started of this conversation, I thought, well, since you dear friend, has been making fun of my forays into music and calling it a midlife crisis, I actually looked up the definition. You'd be stunned by what it actually says.
Okay,
A
go on then.
midlife crisis is a period of emotional, psychological, and behavioral turmoil, often triggered by a heightened awareness of mortality, aging, and unmet goals. And I'm like, this is 100% accurate. That is exactly. That is
All right.
precisely what is happening. But I think I would say I've leaned into it, and I'll answer your original question in a little bit, which is first of all, I've been a man of many hobbies, a boy of many hobbies, then a man of many hobbies, as you all can
Yeah,
attest.
true.
I was always dabbling into one new hobby or the other, be it playing the piano, playing the guitar, doing music at large, even playing chess, swimming, playing soccer with you boys. Like I've had, and now I pick up tennis as well. So I have always had a ton of hobbies. And somehow that intellectual restlessness was actually what made me certain that clinical medicine wasn't for me. I knew that at a very young age. And I'm somehow impressed that at that young age, I somehow stumbled onto the right idea of my future self. Now, why am I saying this? I know Adamu was describing how at some point in his fourth year of med school, he was thinking of leaving. Well, I actually planned to leave. I applied to King's College London for a music scholarship of 2 years. I wanted to go learn jazz in London for 2 years in my fourth year of medical school.
Really? I didn't know this.
Yeah,
Do
but
you know
I
this?
actually put in a full application statement, a personal statement, paid an application fee, submitted samples of my music. It's
No,
ridiculous. Uh,
no, you man for real.
yeah, I did that, and
I didn't
but
know this.
so was that a
Wow.
crisis of sorts? I don't think so. But now that as we're into our 40s, I realize that, of course, it's too late to make drastic changes in life. So it's now time to make a fool of ourselves, which is exactly why I'm releasing music and putting it out to the world to amuse everyone. I know it's a really hard time. There's a lot of hard things going on in the world, and I've decided to add some music into the mix to increase the comedy material you all have to amuse yourselves and to poke fun at me when the moment arises. But actually, seriously, I've always liked music. Built a studio in my basement, I think December of 2022, 2 years plus now. And I never had the time to finish anything. I started like 9, 10 different projects, left them halfway, 60%, and slowly, 60% became 70 for 180 and so on. And now I'm getting things out and putting them on Spotify. I consider them my music diary. Of course, I'm not going to have a career in music. That is not going to happen, right? We know this now. But at least I have a diary where if my midlife crisis hits its peak, I can look back and say, for all that I got wrong about my musical dreams, at least I did something. So that's where it is. That's my answer to you. And, maybe it's
Okay,
a
you know
midlife
what?
crisis, maybe it's not. Who knows?
Now, you know what, right? So before I go to Mekane, right, and let me just say this, right? And I'm not saying this to patronize you, right? But I really like your songs. I mean,
Oh,
I really do. My favorite song is the Salvation Dance. I mean, that song gets me.
Yeah,
I mean,
good.
I absolutely love it. And
Keep talking.
I'm like, come on, man. I know this guy singing this. I mean, so why do I love this so much? But I really do love your music. I mean, I don't think you should just see it as, a catalog of just stuff you're making, but you might actually go big on this. I tell you.
yeah, thanks for the compliment. I'm glad that it's resonating. I'm glad that In fact, I'll tell you a story. So again joking, at home and with friends. The first one I put out was a completely Igede song in Igede language. It was my first in December of last year. Actually, on my birthday in December, I think, or a day after, I'm not sure. And it was like my first experiment. It was the one. It was all vocals. It was a simple chant. Had two short verses and a chorus. Nothing complicated. No instruments. So I just did my voice in many different versions, altered it, just to have like an a cappella, choral, sort of African folk choir
Yeah.
effect. And the song blew up in, of all places, South Africa. I'm like, hold on,
Wow.
wait a minute. Because you can see on Spotify where this song is being, like, 60% of the streams of the song is in South Africa. And I sang the song in Igede language. I'm like, hold on, what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, that's tiny church.
Well, we're still dealing in a few thousands, but you know how it goes. About 3,000
Good.
streams. About
It's really good
3,000
though.
streams. But it's
Like, I mean, like,
surprising. Yeah. a surprising amount of them in South Africa, Malawi, Zimbabwe, Zambia. I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on there, but I'll take it.
I mean, I'll tell you what, right? I'll put a link to.
Cause I mean, what that means is that at least 3,000 times, someone or some people tried to give you a chance to see if you made any sense. That's a lot. I mean, that's
Now, what I'll do is I'll put a link to your music on the description of this video. Okay, I mean, so you haven't got an album yet, right? It's just a collection of songs, right? So, or is it like an EP?
It's a collection of singles. Apparently, the modern strategy is to release a bunch of singles, and then once you have the last 2-3 songs, you can package it all into an album. I think what I'm going to, and then have a formal album release. I think
how
what
many
I'm
songs do
going
you
to
have
do.
now? How many songs do you have on Spotify?
On Spotify, I have another 8 or 10, between 8 and 10 in my computer that I haven't figured out if I want to release yet. But we're getting there slowly.
No, actually, it's 5 on Spotify. I mean, I was just looking at it right here. So it's 5 on
Oh,
Spotify.
yes, the last one, Salvation Dance, is the 5th one. You're right. Yes.
Yeah, actually.
Yes, also,
All right. I mean, Olga, so I'm dying to ask you this question, right?
Listen,
And then
I'm super proud, though. I really am proud of what you've done. Seems like.
Okay.
Excuse me. I don't know if you guys realize this, but you're almost making me cry. This is serious.
Okay, hold on.
No,
Now, let me ask you this question, right? Because I was thinking
all
about this.
jokes aside, sorry, Case, I'll allow you to just go on in a sec. But to be honest, you remember when we were in med school and we used to talk about Olga, Emeka, Pro, you guys do something, you guys, the talent is there. So, I mean, it's just, it's like, how would I say, it's refreshing to see at least one of you doing something with the talent that God has given you. So this, for me, is brilliant. Better late than never. Sorry, Casey, you were trying to say something.
I mean, absolutely. Okay, so 2 things, right? So I was thinking about my own like sort of midlife crisis, and I did some reflection. So I'll share that as we go on. But before then, Olga, I need to ask you this, right? I mean, what does music give you that your day-to-day life or your career doesn't give you?
That's a very important question. And you remember earlier on I said that I'm still, the older I get, the more surprised I am by how much my younger self got me. So as a younger person, I knew myself so well without knowing that I knew myself, if that makes any sense. So I started thinking, well, what drives a person in medical school, second year, to pick up the guitar and put all of his energy into it? Up until that time, I'd been playing the piano for, I think, from the age of 9 and 10, rudimentary level, nothing serious, nothing professional. After we had the year from first year medical school to the break to second, that's ASU strike, if you remember, that was I bought a guitar. And I think that was the best decision I made. But why am I going into these details? You all knew me from medical school. You knew me very well. Very restless soul. Couldn't sit still. Couldn't do anything. Just so much energy. Play soccer here, do this here, hang out here, do this. I realized that to conquer the insanely large amount of knowledge we had to absorb to get through medical school needed music. I was never a point that it was a conscious decision, but I just realized everything was better with music.
Nice.
I could focus better. I could do my most hardest studying was with either some jazz playing in the background or some kind of instrumental music. I never really knew why, but it actually fed my medical school journey. So the harder medical school became, the harder I leaned into my guitar. It was kind of confusing. Like, why are you playing so much guitar when you should be studying? If you get what I'm saying. I didn't know then what was happening to put it to words, but I see now, the older I've gotten, and that even when I get through tough times at work, I lean harder on my guitar. I realize that more than anything else, it's my therapy, more than alcohol, more than sleep, more than seeing an actual therapist, more than anything else. Music has an effect on me that to date I cannot explain in words. Sometimes I go into a trance-like state just listening to music that I love. I'm shedding tears, I don't even know it. So it's always had that impact on me. I think that's what it brings to me that I cannot explain. It has both a relaxing and emotive power over me that I've never really been able to explain, and that is still the case. So that is a place that only music has in my life. Just music does that for me, nothing else. I can just get lost and forget all my troubles. It's like I get into a trance or something. But anyway, that's my explanation. It's my most reliable relaxation technique. Most reliable.
Yeah, Yeah, I can relate with that. And before I share my own reflection, I'll let Mekano add to that if he has anything to say.
Nah, nothing really. I mean, I can relate a lot to what Olga is saying in terms of, getting something to latch on to help him through trying times, My story is completely different, right? And maybe at some point in our conversations we'll touch on that. But yeah, like for me, I think Hima is one of the very fortunate ones if you can really look at it. Take everything into context. Hima is like one of the fortunate ones that didn't even know he was really stumbling into what he really was going to do with his life. For a lot of people, you get into your 30s and your 40s and you still don't have a clue what you want to do or how you want to even go about it. But I think for him, even though it wasn't really refined, he had a lot of the building blocks, if you like, while we're going through med school. A lot of those things were really in place. Now in his 40s, when he's really able to really put everything into perspective and really narrow in on what really matters, he's able to see what he can really draw on to build something that has created some sort of support system for him. And I would say that not many of us are fortunate like that. Like, I certainly am not, I have some very, very trying days and troubling days, and on days like that I really don't really even know what would give me any form of comfort. It's a real struggle sometimes. I mean, while we're trying
Yeah.
and struggling with tech, I told Iman something. I was like, my social battery has tanked, everything. I'm not motivated to do anything really. um Half the time, it's a struggle to get out of bed in the morning. And Iman has music. Some of us don't really have anything. And brings me back to the point I made about, wishing I really had something. Like, I, this is me being vulnerable with my brothers, yeah? For the first time in a very long while, and it was never like this in my 30s, but in the last 2 or 3 years, I actually come back to this house that is really nice and cool and everything, and I get lonely sometimes, a lot of times, right? I wish there was someone I was coming back to, see someone. Not really, I mean, it doesn't really matter if it's a human being in terms of having a spouse or something. Like Iman has music. And that's essentially what I'm talking about. Not many of us are fortunate. Some people have fantastic partners. They don't have music, but they have someone that they can just be vulnerable and just be themselves around. And then some
Yeah,
of us just
absolutely.
have this whole thing where it's beautiful on the outside. And then sometimes after all is said and done, we come back to our space and then I can really
Yeah,
understand why
Yeah.
people put a bullet through their
Yeah,
mouth
so
and then just
Mekano,
pull
right?
it in. Yeah.
Yes.
yeah, no,
So
but
yeah, so
Casey, if I
Mekano.
can say something quickly about what
Go
Adamu
ahead.
just shared. That is really, really deep, and thanks for sharing that. I think that in the end, every person needs to be sufficient within themselves to an extent. Because I've seen this version where, maybe even especially those that marry early. I wouldn't say I married early, but even those who married early, sometimes they become so wrapped up in by defining their own happiness and their own peace by what's around them, a spouse, the kids, their job. I was certainly guilty of doing different versions of those things at different stages in my life. But actually, I think the most important thing is within oneself knowing how to find peace when it's not there.
Wow.
I think because again I was a particularly restless person from a young age, I was forced to learn to find ways to find peace all by myself. As exceedingly ridiculously extroverted as I am, some of my most cherished moments are moments of absolute solitude. Sometimes my family is confused. I go into the mountains just to stay in absolute silence, not hear a car, not hear a plane, not hear a child cry, nothing. Just literally go into the mountains of West Virginia or somewhere and just hide away for a couple of days. And I come out refreshed, feeling healed. Why do I say
Yeah.
that? I've had in the last 2025, part of 2025, with all the changing in the funding landscape, with the research that we do, the US government has had a massive stroke, right? And started doing all kinds of stupid shit. So, in the midst of all of that, a lot of the work that I had identified myself as, I had sort of defined my career by, was up in smoke. So, I actually had a bit of a career
Blip,
moment
blip.
of truth, trying to decide is my happiness and sense of self, sense of definition going to be tied to the whims of the president of the United States? And I decided in 2025 that the answer was a categorical no. And it's true of that. I mean, just across all things. Sometimes, our families, some things not always go right, even in our family life. Some are just challenge ups and downs, there are highs and there are lows. There are highs and there are lows. Some people get those highs lasting longer or shorter than others. Things vary, right? But through all different versions of this, one needs to find a way to center yourself. I am particularly lucky that in many of my hobbies, I can turn to one or two or three things and shut the world out. And that's how I feel like I survived 2025 hiding away in a dungeon, either with my guitar or playing online chess or doing something absolutely ridiculous for my age, because it was a really tough year. I just wanted to also say that in addition to having someone to return to, be it a spouse, kids, or a combination of both, or even siblings, or even just friends, the most important thing, we need to find ways to center ourselves, and I'll say this last thing. What they always say is that your 40s is the hardest decade of your life, right?
Wow.
Why is that? That's when your bills and financial commitments are at their peak. Your parents are aging, so you start taking care of them. For most people, your kids are coming of a certain age as well, so expenditure on kids and the turmoil that comes with that increase. Usually, again, by your 40s, most people have been married 10, 12, 11, 13 years. These are kind of the most difficult years of marriage as well. Although some say it's the first 5 to 7 years, some say it's the second 10 years or whatever. But in your 40s, you have a mortgage that takes a lot of your earnings. You have all these car payments, all these health things coming up. You are becoming pre-diabetic. Your eyesight has gone to nonsense. Your waistline is expanding. All like everything is and then at work also, finally, this is an important part. At work, you actually also get into the highest positions you might ever get to, become the director, senior manager. This is where all of these things converge.
And then suddenly you don't have any headroom, right? Because suddenly, because you're just stuck. I mean,
so the 40s
I can relate to what you're saying in terms of work.
Yeah.
Because right now I'm in the British High Commission. I'm thinking, okay, so where do you move to, right? There really
Okay, you guys, right?
much room. Yeah.
We haven't got much time left, right? Because I wanted to keep this show under 40 minutes, and we've gone on the 30 minutes mark. But let me just say this, right? It's okay to be vulnerable on this show. Absolutely, that's what it's all about. Olga did say something that I really like. He said music is his therapy, and he also said something about like being able to find peace within yourself. And that's absolutely spot on. It's very important. So I said I was going to share some bit of reflection.
Before you share,
I'm exactly on the same page with Olga. What?
Before you share, right?
What?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So I want to say something real quick, right? For a lot of you guys, and I know, I mean, you guys know this, right? When we were in med school, there was this point in time when everybody used to call me OH because I loved alcohol, right? I would love to drink and get drunk. No. Like, don't be stupid, Casey. Listen. You might learn a thing or two. You don't fall.
Go on.
Anyway, so yeah.
Casey catches strays for no reason. Go on.
I swear.
Go on.
I just want to count my steeds. But seriously though, so you see, when I got to med school and I met you guys and we became friends, I was coming from a place where I needed to prove myself, and I'm going to explain this in like a minute or two, right? I'm not going to take a lot of time. So I grew up in Kano. I mean, I'm Hausa. My family is 99.9% Muslim, So I grew up in a community where we weren't really valued, and there was a lot of pressure and persecution and bigotry and whatnot, right? And so growing up in Kano at the time, our family was always different. And amongst my cousins and uncles and aunts, we needed to do extra to check certain boxes, if that makes sense. I'm sure Olga can relate to that. And Casey, you can relate to that as well. You grew up in the North, right? So it was one of those families where back home, there was really no appreciation for who we were or what we wanted to do with our lives because we were not Muslim, right? And so I had this coming into med school. Sometime around when I was a teenager or thereabout, I lost my mom when I was 10, guys. I lost my mom when I was 10. My dad was an academic that was working and traveling half the time and then went into development at some point and, was always traveling. So things were good at home in terms of material stuff, but there was always a disconnect. I didn't have a mother to really bond with. My father was on the road half the time. My relatives didn't really like me. So that was essentially sort of what I grew up. And then I discovered football and discovered alcohol sometime in my teens, and and sort of
It's a
carried
lovely
both.
combination.
Yeah, I carried both to University of Jos. And then I met you guys. And then even when I met you guys, you remember when we got into 100 level, it was shortly after 2001, after the religious crisis. So it's not as if
Yeah.
Plateau was particularly the right place for a Hausa person. So I was a very conflicted person. On one hand, I'm Hausa. The other hand, I'm Christian. It was almost like oil and water. The two didn't really mix. So
Yeah.
I would meet people and people would sort of grapple with that sort of identity. How can you be Hausa and Christian? What does that mean? First time I met Emeka's mom, fun fact, met Emeka's mom, Emeka was like, oh, mommy, meet Adamu Mekano. He's been really helpful because I met Emeka in MPA and then he ran out of cash and Popsy was around. And Popsy was like, oh, let me give you some money until your mom comes. And the mom came like 3-4 hours later. And so he's like, oh, meet Adamu Mekano is my friend. And the first question mom asked was like, are you Christian? Because Joss was really that tense at the time. I mean, she didn't
Yeah.
want Emeka to
Well
be getting
mentioned. Yeah.
chopped off by Adamu Mekano, right? In Jos. So, and then I met you guys, Oga from Benue, Igbo, lots of people. And that's why one of the first persons I really became friends with was Ageno. Because Ageno is from the north, speaks Hausa. And then over time, I got really close to Oga as well because Oga grew up in Jos. And even though he was not from Plateau State, he understood the language. There was some sort of identity. So I grappled with this throughout med school. Maybe part of the reason why I really couldn't make friends outside Mango Tree, because you guys became like my safe space in a sense. It was the one place where I didn't need to. In Kano, I had to prove myself. Anywhere else, I needed to prove myself. Mango Tree, and I'm saying this thing, I didn't even know that it was a safe space for me. Right now, I think back at school and I think, if I didn't have Mango Tree, maybe I would have done Crease. I swear to God.
Okay, so for the viewers who are watching this who have no idea what the mango tree is, in a few seconds I'll just tell you what it is. So in medical school, we had a spot where we would always go and chill, and it was literally under a mango tree, hence the name. But the mango tree evolved to just being, to being more than just a tree, but it evolved to being a safe space. And I know until this day, we have a community called the Mango Tree, and it's actually a virtual community. So a mango tree, in my opinion, so everyone should have a mango tree, their safe space where they can fall back to. It could be friends, family, anything, but we all deserve a mango tree. Okay, I think we're running out of time now. This show needs to come to an end in the next 5 minutes. But just to say,
You are going to share, though. We want to hear your story.
so do you know what, right?
Time.
I think we should do another episode and continue on this. Very quickly, I'll just say that I relate to a lot of what Olga said in terms of music being his therapy. For me, it's football, and it's okay to be vulnerable. And I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable here now. Look at me, right? I'm running a YouTube channel, and and I'm talking in front of camera. As you can tell, I have a stutter, and I've stuttered all my life. But here I am, I'm doing YouTube and all of that. So it's almost like this is like my safe space. This are my football, and I found a way to merge the two together. So I've got a YouTube channel, as you know. This is on WNFC TV. It's my football club. It's a non-FA affiliated grassroots football club, and so all I do in terms of running my football club, doing videos, editing, and all of that is akin to what Olga has with music. I see it as all I'm doing, I'm just like, so sort of like I'm making a catalog of my life, and it's all on YouTube, which is going to outlive me. So it's almost like, so yes, this is my hobby, my football, playing football twice a week, every week, and having the cameras to record all the games and all of that, doing YouTube, and now branching outside of football on YouTube and talking about life. This is my therapy in some ways. But yeah, I think I've got some few questions I just need to ask you guys before we wrap up. I'll start with you because I think you're itching to speak, right? So hang on. Let me just ask you this, right? Obviously, like a lot of what we have said now is almost like midlife crisis. But let me ask you this, right? What is the one thing that people in their 40s should stop being afraid of? Death?
Okay. Thanks. Thank you,
I wasn't
Angel of
expecting that.
Death.
Okay. Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, listen, It's gonna come whether you like it or not. I read something a few days ago. And someone said you spend your whole life trying to chase the best life while death is chasing at you. One thing is for sure, you might not get the best life that you're chasing, but death would
But
certainly
that's gonna get
catch up with you, right?
Beautiful.
that's
Seems like a
deep.
very grim picture, right? But it is what it is. And this is what has happened to me. Ima, you remember last year we spoke and you said you were in Nigeria and we couldn't see and you had to go to Miango or something, right? Just to build on what I said earlier about, sort of using alcohol as an escape and cigarettes and all of that, sometime when I was about 39, 38, 30, 38, 39, thereabout, right? The idea of God started coming really interesting to me. I really wanted to, okay, so you grew up in a Christian family, you've been a nominal Christian your whole life, if you like. And maybe that was the brink of midlife, right? A lot of people said that maybe that's what it is, right? But for me, um, up until I was 38, 39, I was really scared of death. The thought of growing old and not accomplishing everything that you needed to do was really something that weighed heavily on my mind. And then you'd do everything within your power to exercise, do this, take steps, change your diet, do whatever it is that you need to lead a healthy life and all of that. None of that was enough for me. And this is not a universal thing. This is my reality, right? This is just me speaking.
Yeah.
And then one night I went to bed, guys. I don't know if it's a supernatural experience or it's a paranormal experience, whatever you want to call it, but it was one of those moments where it looked like I was out of my body and I could see myself in a trance like death states, right? And I was trying to wake, like I was hovering over my physical body and I was trying to get back into my body and I couldn't. Um,
Wow.
and in that
Wow.
instant, I felt like I had died,
Wow.
right? Yeah, felt like I had died. Um, and after what seemed like an eternity, I came back to my sense, if you like, or I came out of what was like a trance-like state. I don't even know if it was real or not. It felt really real. So I had that moment, and the very next day, I went to church. I hadn't been to church in like maybe 7, 8 years before that time, and I went to church because yeah, for real, I went to church and, I was visibly shaken and then I started going through discipleship class and everything. Not a lot of what was said resonated with me, but over time, I realized that I will believe I'm about to say what I'm about to say. I realized that all our problems, right? Everything, all the things that we worry about, things that keep us up at night, our sleepless nights, and the things that weigh heavily on our mind, all those answers are found in God.
Yeah.
I can't even believe, right? And so I started getting into that. Things of God started interesting me. And then, believe it or not, I started praying. And so when people said prayer works, it's not a cliche to me. I can actually attest to the fact that it really works, right?
Absolutely.
And
Mekano, if I can support that very quickly, I know time is short, and this is so
yeah,
Casey. I hope you're able to sort of edit some of the bits and shorten them if you're struggling to keep it within 40 minutes. But I'll be very quick with this. So when people say, well, I'm in America, America is becoming very skeptical of religion, lots of atheists and agnostics. And sometimes I tell people, and here the evangelical Christian faith is considered part and parcel of white supremacy. The slave holding history of America is tied to evangelical Christianity. Some of the most racist elements of the society also claim evangelical affiliation. And every time somebody talks to me and says, well, why do you think God exists and you even sort of declare yourself a Christian so unashamedly and to who anybody will listen? I've had some experiences that cannot be explained otherwise. Somebody we all know, I'm not going to say who, I've never shared this with anybody else who knows him. So, by definition, I've never shared this with any of you. One night, I had a very short Christian phase in medical school. It's an interesting phase between, of course, I grew up with
Elkanah,
exceedingly
don't do
Christian.
anything so stupid. That face.
No, hold on a minute. I'll get to. So I grew up in a very religious household. My parents were supremely, devout Christians. My mom's still alive. She is still an evangelist, everything, all of that. So I grew up with the right upbringing, steeped in the Bible, all of that stuff. But I never really had that personal thing. There's a short stint in my 6th year of medical school. I was really close to God. I was going to church 3-4 times a week. Just like kind of what you had when you were 38, 39. So I had that period and I was a very prayerful person. It's very interesting. Sorry, Casey, to interject and take even more time, but I want to share this. So one of those
Go ahead.
mornings I was having a prayer between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. I know it sounds weird. Me, Emmanuel, I know. Having my early morning prayer session. And yeah, I do not have a stroke when I say this, but God spoke to me.
Right.
I can see
Like
Casey
loud and
twitching.
clear. You actually heard the voice.
I can see Casey twitching. God spoke to me in a very clear, this wasn't a dove showing up or signs in the weather or in the clouds. No, very clear message. So and so person is in a desperate need and you need to go right now and provide X and X and X to this person. I'm going to keep it as, we all know this person, medical school environment as well. So first thing I did when I dressed up, I left the house of going to class. I went a little early so I could catch him before he went to class. And I said, I really don't know what's happening because it was the first time this happened to me. Oh, actually, the second time. So I really don't know what is happening here. But around 4 5 a.m., this is what I know this was God. It can't be anything else. I'm not hallucinating. I'm not crazy yet. This is God. Told me to give you the last penny I had in my account, 20,000 naira. That was a lot of money. I took it out of an ATM. I handed it to this guy. The guy broke down in tears. We all know this guy. I'm not going to say who is he. Broke down in tears and cried and said just the night before his mom had been admitted in the hospital. The dad had emptied his account. All of them were doing like contribution amongst family, running around. Going, all they needed to complete that emergency surgery was 20,000 naira, and they had been crying to God all night. He had been
Wow.
crying to God all night. He hadn't slept. And that just when it's like, oh my God, I have classes today and I also have to go to the hospital. He was going to rest. He had a knock on his door and it was me. This is not somebody else's story. This is mine.
Yeah. Absolutely. God
A short
answers
one, this is
prayers.
going to be even short. In 2023, we grew up relatively modest. We didn't even have a phone line at home, right? So I just woke up one day and I had this same voice again. I had to take a public transport to the Nitel phone booth, use a card, and call my sister to say, I had this very clear voice. Wherever your husband is, he needs to stay there and not travel. Because in my dream, he had died on his way back. This was more than a dream. This is not just a dream. I have dreams every day. Not every time I do this. He died on his way back from Kaduna. I don't know where he is. Maybe he went to Kaduna, maybe he didn't. But this is my dream and it's real. He must not travel. He died on his way back from Kaduna. You will not believe this. She's like, oh my goodness. My husband went to Kaduna 2 days ago for his PhD or master's or whatever it was to ABU. And he's on his way back tonight or tomorrow. I said, tell him not to travel. However, you're going to get to him. So just when GSM was coming, was everybody, penetration
Really?
wasn't there. However you can get this guy, make sure you do it. This is me, Emmanuel Mecano. This is
Really?
me. This is my experience. I'm not
So
hallucinating.
how did that story end?
He ended with the guy didn't listen. He got on the car and he died on his way back from Kaduna.
No way.
Yes, that's
Are
how
you
my sister
kidding?
became a widow. My own elder sister became a widow exactly on this. So then every time I had a dream, it was just panic stations in my house. Everybody, I said, no. I know
No
when it's serious and when
way.
it's not. So anyway, I say
No
that to
way.
agree with you that, we all need to also really believe. I mean, Christianity is self, how do you call it? You have to sign up, right? It's not voluntary, it's not
The
compulsory.
personal thing,
But
right?
those who
Right.
ever
You know what?
wondered, it is a real thing.
Mechanic, you know what? Guys,
In
right.
terms of
We
Christianity, there's
hang
the
on.
corporate aspect of it that we're all Christians under some sort of umbrella as Christians, right? But it's a very personal thing. And I think the part of scripture that says you should walk your salvation with fear and trembling, it's actually a real thing. It depends on how you interpret that, but it's something that you really need to walk at. And for me, then 839 was a turning point for me, right?
Okay, Mechanic, I'm sorry, you
And
guys.
believe it
I
or not,
need.
I'm about to say
No,
something, Casey.
Mechanic.
Sorry, and I'll give you an opportunity to
No.
speak.
I need to end the
Believe
show
it
now,
or not.
okay? I'll tell you what. We hang on. It's my
Hold on.
show.
I
I
need to
make the
get this
rules,
thing
okay?
out. I need to get this
It's
thing
my
out, right?
show.
No,
Let
you're
him
not
have
going to
30
bully us
seconds,
for here.
Casey.
Calm
Be
down.
kind.
All right, 30 seconds. Go on. 30
Less than
seconds.
30 seconds. Believe it or not, guys, right? So I'm doing this leadership training, Christian leadership training. It's called The Journey. It's like 18 months, where you have like 6 sessions, and it's all about building Christian leaders. It's all about leadership capacity building, but in keeping with biblical doctrines, and I've been doing that for about 18 months. And I'm ending maybe in a few months. And then all that has been on my mind for the past 6 months, and maybe this is my own part, this a little bit of the midlife crisis, right? All that has been on my mind for the past 4 to 6 months is I really want to enroll in Rema Bible School.
Awesome.
I really
Okay.
just want to go to
And you
Rema
will.
Bible.
Guys, you know what? You know what? Let's do another show, all right? We'll talk about faith
Faith.
and and maybe our existential crisis, right? But I need to end the show now. I mean, it's been absolutely fun, I'm chatting with you guys, but we're out of time now. We're going to end it. So let's do another show, in a week or so, and we can dive into all this, your out of body experience, your hearing God's voice, and all of that, okay? But
I'll
it's
tell
been
you
a
about hearing
pleasure
God's
for
voice
our
as well.
viewers.
I have a few stories to share myself.
Next episode, okay? So like, share, and subscribe. Until the next episode, take care of yourselves and each other.
Take care, guys. Peace.